Hello, I'm Darrell Wu, Vice President of My Sister's House Board of Directors.
And I'm Gloria Ochoa, also a board member of My Sister's House, a nonprofit organization. The purpose of the show is to help individuals in our community recognize aspects of healthy and unhealthy relationships, as well as raise the awareness of domestic violence in the community.
We are part of My Sister's House, a Sacramento-based nonprofit organization focused on serving the needs of Asian and Pacific Islander women and children impacted by domestic violence. My Sister's House provides a culturally appropriate and responsive safe haven and community services. In a continuing effort to spread the word about domestic violence prevention, My Sister's House brings you this special program.
You are watching Healthy Relationships, brought to you by the Office of Violence Against Women.
Today on Healthy Relationships, we will describe cultural aspects of abuse in unhealthy relationships.
Think about your daughter, sister, cousin, niece, granddaughter, or mother. How can you make sure that they are in a healthy relationship? And what should you do if you find yourself or a loved one in an unhealthy relationship?
We know this is a tough subject to talk about, and it's especially tough in our Asian and Pacific Islander communities because of the customs in our cultures. In November 2010, a Mien mother and her two college-age sons were killed by her husband, their father, in Sacramento. In January 2011, another Mien mother was killed by her husband in front of their daughter. Hopefully, this episode, in a small way, will help prevent similar stories from occurring.
It's especially tough for women in our Asian and Pacific Islander communities to deal with bad relationships. In this episode, we have a young woman named Blia who talks about her struggles as a victim and how she faced cultural issues which allowed the abuse by her husband to continue. Blia shares her story. Blia, thank you for meeting with me today to share your story. How did you meet and pick your husband?
I met my partner back in high school. He was my high school sweetheart. He was my first boyfriend. I had really big dreams, so my hope was to have a happy, healthy marriage with a happy, healthy family.
When did you begin to realize that things weren't going as you hoped?
6 months after we were married, things had changed. He began to question my every movement. Anyone that I talk to, he wants to know who and why I talk to them. Whenever I go to the store and buy something, he expects me to bring back the receipts. And the total that I spent, he has to know what it is that I spent for.
When these behaviors started, how did it make you feel?
I didn't think of anything because I grew up in my culture and I was taught to obey my husband. So to me, it was normal. I thought it was because he cared and he loved me. So his jealousy was just a way to show me that he loved me.
How did you first deal with your problems?
I was taught growing up that a good wife is supposed to endure everything. For me to save my husband's face and the clan's face, I have to just endure everything. So I kept everything bottled up inside.
What other concerns came as the relationship continued?
I couldn't have any friends. He slowly isolated me from friends and then slowly from my siblings and my families. I'm not allowed to visit them unless he's there with me, and whenever we go visit my family, the longest I'm allowed to stay is 30 minutes. And then we need to head back home. He could go wherever he wants, with whoever he wants. I don't have the right to question him.
Did your family and community do anything to prevent you from leaving?
The first time that I actually ran away from him was 3 years after the marriage. He hit me and I was bleeding during that time. I ran back home to my family. He came and paid a price. It's a cultural thing that they will come and pay a price and ask my uncles and my parents to console me. back, to go back with him and reconcile. And as a good daughter to my parents and a good niece to my uncles, I did what they asked. I went back with him because he promised to be good. So I went back.
Was there anyone in your family saying anything to you?
My in-laws knew that their son was like that, but he was no different from his father. His father abused his mother, and so he abused me, and everything was considered normal.
How did you feel when you went back to him?
I gave it a chance, but at the same time, I also did not trust my family anymore. I felt that I went to them for help, and they sent me back to the dark hole that I came out from. So I didn't trust them anymore. So I decided, why go back to them when I needed help? So I stayed. And year after year, I had one child after another. I didn't know what to do, so he had a sister, and I kind of confided in her, and she said that all men are alike. So leaving her brother would just means that I'll run into another one who is probably worse. So I stayed. And she also said the more children I have with him, the better our marriage would get. But after 4 children, the marriage didn't get any better, it got worse. It just got to the point where I felt that I don't want my children to have a broken home, so I stayed for them. And then I realized I didn't want my sons to be like their father. I did not want my daughters to end up with someone like their father. There were so many suicidal thoughts, but I felt that if I died, nobody would be there for my kids. So then I decided it's better to just leave, and I left.
You mentioned you talked to your sister. Was there someone else that you talked to?
Well, after the first time I ran away and I was counseled to come back, I never went back to my family. The community is also another reason why it's so difficult to leave an abused marriage. Fear of what people would say, and in my culture, a divorced woman carries a very low reputation and is considered a bad role model.
So, how are things today?
Looking back from the moment that I left till today, I have to say that my life is so much happier. I'm thriving as a mother to my children. I have a career. It was not easy, but I felt that the best way to really prove to the one man who used to tell me that without him I'm nothing and without him I will not survive is to thrive and move on and live on. I set my goals and I achieved them, and so I'm happy and I see the world differently. I see beauties and many, many opportunities.
So, Blia, what were the initial steps you took to change things?
For so many years, I didn't know that how I lived for all those years were not normal. It wasn't until I started talking to more people at work, finding more about what life should really be like, and compared to what I lived with, that made me realize there's more to life than what I have.
How are your family and community responding to you now?
No, I have to say that I was very lucky. After I decided to leave, my abuser, my family was very supportive. The community, however, is different. I became an outcast to my own kind. I walked down the street, people whispering in each other's ears. From far away, they pointed at me. But what kept me strong was there are so many women out there that walked through the same path that I walked through. And they could talk about me. But what I wanted to be was a survivor for them to feel like, hey, if she could do it, maybe we can too.
How did My Sister's House help you?
After I left, about 3 or 4 months, I went to my sister's house for help. I was in so much denial when I first walked in. I felt like, oh, I'm nothing like this woman. Little by little, I opened up, and there's a time, they said you have to mourn something that happened to you. And it wasn't until I mourned what happened that I accepted that I was abused. My sister's house helped me set my goals and helped me step by step on how to achieve them. I have to say thank you to my sister's house. Thank you for being there for me when I needed you most. And thank you for still being in existence today to so many women out there.
If you could give advice to another Hmong, Laotian, Mien, Cambodian, or another Asian Pacific Islander sister, what would it be?
Just to know that you are worth it. Do not be afraid. There are so many programs out there, programs such as My Sister's House, that will be there for you. And know that if anyone is going to change your life for the better, it is you. And you can set yourself free, just like I did.
Blia, thank you again for sharing your story with us.
When we come back, we shall seek the advice from a health professional with a lot of experience working with survivors and victims of domestic violence.
Dr. Moira Sharma, a psychologist who is an expert on domestic violence, identifies signs of an unhealthy relationship and shares aspects of how to maintain a healthy relationship.
Unfortunately, Daryl, it's not a unique story. It happens often in our Asian Pacific Islander community.
When healthy relationships continues.
My sister's house. My sister's house ya ilu kong hao ba tao pe jo vin yao tao zake ba ming nu chang ga yu mu tia ho lu ya yu ya idu ne chimo ho lu wo lo nu ya ba yu tia zo ho lu to yu ya yu idu ne yu wo ho lu nu ku ya tia zake chang ga go yu zo yu lu lu ho lu yu wo no yu mo han ye mu to yi ki xie go yu ku tao nya chen tao tia ba tao yu lu jo yi. Look program My Sister's House, Luanki, my big one, My Sister's House. Dashi, yo, ilu gong hao, one no more be a dear, yo, luce vin yao, yo iluce ba, dan try to vin yao, chi hai ning tu, nigu, more young to what tao yo gay, to be hai lolo at My Sister's House. Let's say the bay hai zo, bay to vin yao luce, dashi ni yo ilu gong hao, what ba to vin yao so ling so do.
Welcome back to Healthy Relationships. We just heard from our special guest, Blia, who was brave enough to recognize the signs of an unhealthy relationship with her husband and to do something about it, in spite of what she perceived as a lack of support from her community and family members.
While Blia says her husband continued to be abusive, many of you watching may share the same experience or know someone in the same situation and would like to do something today about that relationship.
I sat down with Dr. Moira Sharma, a psychologist who is an expert in domestic violence. She currently works for Kaiser Permanente at the Outpatient Psychiatry Department in South Sacramento. Dr. Sharma, we just heard Blia's story. Please tell us, how unique is Blia's story?
Unfortunately, Daryl, it's not a unique story. It happens often in our Asian Pacific Islander community, and not just among women, but to Mien, Laotian, Cambodian, South Asian, West Asian, Filipinos, Hawaiians, Samoans, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean women, and many other Asian Pacific Islander women. So unfortunately, Blia's story isn't a unique one.
Can you tell us what are the cultural barriers that prevent many young Asian Pacific Islander women from leaving abusive relationships?
So there's many different cultural aspects of the Asian Pacific Islander community, and these aspects can serve as barriers to women in abusive relationships. Ultimately, domestic violence or abuse can be readily accepted as commonplace, and the pain and the abuse of the victim, oftentimes the wife, is usually minimized in these situations. Some of the key values are that men rule the household, They're the main holders of leadership. They run the clans, they run the community councils, and wives basically must submit to the wishes of their husband or defer to their decision making. Another cultural value is that one must not bring shame to the family. People need to respond in ways that are very face-saving when it comes to the family. So if a person has a problem with something that's going on inside the family, it's really taboo for them to talk to anybody outside. Often in these collective communities, many people are living with extended family, so cousins, aunts, uncles, several generations, and that usually means that more people can contribute to this idea of really keeping the family together at all costs, regardless of any issues of safety. Community leaders may look down upon organizations like My Sister's House because they see their purpose as breaking up families, but in reality, My Sister's House really wants to help maintain women in safe and happy and healthy relationships. So that's sometimes of a misperception. But that's part of the cultural value system that, again, can serve as a barrier for many women in these situations.
What are some signs that family members may be using culture as an excuse for women to stay in an abusive relationship?
There's a lot of different statements that I'll hear women say that their family members use to encourage them to stay in a relationship, even if there's abuse. You know, one common statement is that that's the way our culture has always been, allowing second wives or girlfriends. This is how men are. I think Blia had actually said that about her family, that people, or her sister or sister-in-law had indicated, this is just how men are in our culture and this is what we need to put up with. Another statement might be that the women are often blamed for being a bad wife or being told that they're doing something wrong. Another common statement is if there's a thought of leaving or getting help from the outside, people will exert shame in the sense of saying, what are you doing to the family? Think of the shame you're bringing on our house, on our family. Don't tell anyone what's happening. They could possibly take the children away. Think of what you're doing to the children. These are all common statements that you'll often hear family members say as a means to preserve the family and also encourage the woman not to look for any resources or help. They'll also say things like, what will people think of you? What will the community think? Blia had often talked about how even till this day, she'll still see looks, she'll still see people pointing at her, so she can sense that the community may still have some sense of shame, feeling like an outcast. And then based on other values having to do with shamanism or other religious backgrounds, they may have concerns that maybe the husband's spirit or the wife's spirit is sick, or a curse has been put on the house or on them because of her actions or his actions, and then eventually that this will be resolved. So a lot of these are aspects that people use.
What are some signs of an unhealthy relationship?
So there's a number of signs that you or someone you know may be in an unhealthy relationship. You have to ask yourself, are you being put down, insulted by your partner or by your partner's family on a regular or increasing basis? A lot of criticism about your role as the woman in the family, as a mother, as a wife. Another experience a person may have is, are they being hit, or are they scared that they'll be hit, or things will be thrown at them or at their children, or other threats? Are there holes being punched in the wall by the abuser? Another aspect is whether or not their partner is pushing to have wives or girlfriends when the woman has indicated she doesn't want him to. She wants to be in a safe, monogamous relationship. Another aspect is being forced to have extra children, even though the woman may have difficulty with childbirth or raising other children, or just for other reasons doesn't feel comfortable having other children. Is the woman crying a lot? Is she crying a lot because of her husband's behavior or some of the aspects of what the family is encouraging her that she doesn't agree with? Is she scared of her partner or her partner's family? Blia had talked a little bit about being really concerned about what the effect of seeing her husband's behavior would have on her children. So that was another concern, is seeing the aspects of abuse that have occurred not just on her, but on her children.
Can two people have a healthy relationship when they have different cultural traditions and values? And what does that look like?
People can have a wonderful, rich life embracing different aspects of their cultural traditions, both whether they're Asian Pacific Islanders or other different cultural backgrounds. The key is fostering certain values and behaviors. So one big behavior that's really important is listening to your partner's needs and wishes and really trying to respond to those concerns. A big value is respect, having respect for your partner. You know, some of the things that we try to educate families about is that hands are for hugging, they're not for hurting. So really teaching that parents the importance of modeling that for their children. Respect in terms of words, and words that make one feel good as opposed to crying or feeling demeaned or put down. One partner having a monogamous relationship when their partner has indicated that that's what they want, not bringing necessarily other partners home or even having relationships outside the marriage, and then bringing potential diseases or other concerns back home to the wife. And really seeing that the partner is the most important aspect of having a successful family and or relationship, and it's not activities that are consumed with drugs or alcohol or gambling or other activities that take away from being in the relationship with the partner. There really needs to be an aspect of mutual respect and working things out and working with one another, not just one person is always in charge and nobody else has any input. And obviously there should always be safety. No one should feel any sense of intimidation or feeling isolated or feeling a lot of freedom and movement. So the couple's free to get help, either together as a couple or solo.
So Dr. Sharma, what do you want people to remember?
So today we've been talking a lot about the cultural aspects of domestic violence in the Asian Pacific Islander community. And we're not saying that culture across our communities condones domestic violence. And so regardless of whatever your culture is, you know, and if you think your relationship might not be good for your health, your safety, or that of your children's, you do need to get help. So call for help, call professionals, call other people that you think will help and support you. Blia talked about a very courageous story, and eventually when she took steps, her family supported her. So people will support you. Remember, you're not alone. Help is out there. And getting help for yourself will also be a help to your family and your children.
Did you know, in 1998, Maung Thai Ying, the Hmong Violence Prevention Initiative, convened a group of Hmong women leaders from across the Twin Cities metropolitan area to talk about the root causes of violence against women and girls. At the retreat, women identified the following factors they believe lead to violence against women and girls: treating daughters and sons differently, not valuing women and their contributions to family and community, valuing marriages above physical and emotional safety in an abusive relationship, valuing the bearing of many children above the reproductive health or rights of women, believing that males are born with more power than females, and supporting marriage structures that set the stage for violence. If you suspect that you or someone you know and love is a victim of abuse, ask yourself these questions. Is your friend or family member, usually a woman, always scared or sad because of the abuser's behavior? Does the abusive partner threaten to hit or kill the wife, or worse, does he cause bruises or other marks on the wife? Do people from the family or Asian Pacific Islander community tell the wife that in their culture, how the husband acts is acceptable? If you answered yes to some or all of these questions, you or your relative may be a victim of domestic violence or abuse. Please note that if the abusive partner has a mental health issue, drug or drinking problem, the risk of harm is greater. To protect yourself, what should you do? With us is Vicki DeBoard, a staff member of My Sister's House.
So, Vicki, what should a woman do if her husband or partner is abusing her?
It's important to talk to someone you can trust and create a physical safety plan. You can come in person, or you can call My Sister's House crisis line at 916-428-3271.
What if a woman doesn't speak English well?
My Sister's House specializes with women who don't speak the English language. We have translators for over 10 Asian languages and dialects. All someone has to do is call our crisis line at 916-428-3271 and say their language needs and their phone number.
Then what happens?
Then my sister's house will find a trained person to answer the question the person has and to develop a safety plan.
Can someone come in person, and where do they go?
Coming in person is even better. They can talk to a trained person face-to-face, receive emotional support, get information and resources, and then we can make the appropriate referrals.
So, if someone comes in person, what can they expect?
My sister's house staff is trained to start with what the person needs. Do they need to go over their finances? Do they need to develop a safety plan for when their husband or partner comes home and has spent all the money on alcohol or on drugs and is angry?
Can you tell us how cultural factors play a role in domestic violence for Asian Pacific Islander women?
Some Asian Pacific Islander women are brought over from another country, and their partner may not be Asian Pacific Islander, and yet they feel obligated under their culture to be a good wife, even though it isn't good for their health or safety or their children's well-being. Perhaps it is because of the language or culture that it prevents these Asian Pacific Islander women from receiving the help they need to be happy and to grow old happy and be safe. The lessons of these recent Mien deaths are that we don't want our children to lose their friends to an early death because they were trying to protect their mother from their father. We don't want to be the child or family member who kept hoping his father was going to get better or be nicer to his wife if they just stayed in one house together and put up with him only to see their mother or family member be killed.
So, Vicky, if a woman is suffering from abuse, what should she do?
I hope she will be brave enough to call, end her misery, and achieve financial, physical, and emotional safety. I hope she will be brave enough to call our crisis line, 916-428-3271, so she can find out where she can go to get help.
因為第一個當家嘅爸，胡特別錄講好 my sister's house， 都是當要做一招，不可以被我下意，做一招，不可以被我下意。
Thank you for joining us today on Healthy Relationships. We hope that this show has encouraged you to evaluate the relationships in your life. Remember, if you or a loved one is ever in need of help because of domestic violence or any other form of abuse in a relationship, contact My Sister's House multilingual 24-hour helpline at 916-428-3271. Maraming salamat sa inyong panonood ng Healthy Relationships. Sana ay nakatulong ito sa inyong mga relasyon sa buhay. Alalahanin ninyo na kung kayo o sino mang malapit sa inyo ay nangangailangan ng tulong dahil sa pag-abuso ng kanilang asawa o kapamilya, tumawag lang kayo sa My Sister's House, 916-428-3271. Ang linyang ito ay bukas ng 24 na oras para lamang tumulong sa inyo. At mayroong magtagalog sa linya.
Mark your calendars for this year's Shelter Advocate Training beginning April 3rd. And My Sister's House will be celebrating its 10th anniversary on May 23rd, 2011. Hope you'll be there. For more information on My Sister's House, please visit our website at my-sisters-house.org.
We'd especially like to thank today's guests, Leah and Dr. Sharma. We'd also like to give a special thank you to the Office of Violence Against Women for making this episode possible, and to the Crossing staff for their technical assistance.
That's all for today's episode on Healthy Relationships. On behalf of My Sister's House, thank you for watching.